I now give the floor to His Excellency Lejeune Mbella, Minister of Foreign Affairs of Cameroon.
Excellence.
Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, allow me at the outset to convey to you the warmest greetings of His Excellency Paul Biya, President of the Republic of Cameroon, Head of State, who has authorized me to represent him at this session of the General Assembly and to speak before you on his behalf. Mr. President, Secretary General of the United Nations, Heads of State, Heads of Government, and Heads of Delegation, ladies and gentlemen. Like previous speakers who have spoken at this rostrum before me, I wish at the outset to convey my sincere and brotherly congratulations to His Excellency Mr. Tijani Mohamed Bande on his election to the presidency of the 74th session of the General Assembly. I have no doubt, Mr. President, that your wealth of experience and your leadership will allow you to steer with great success our discussions. Cameroon will extend to you its full support to ensure that you discharge your mandate with resounding success. I also wish from this rostrum to pay a sincere tribute to your predecessor, Madame Maria Fernanda Espinosa Garces, for the devotion and commitment with which she successfully steered the work of the 73rd session of our Assembly. I wish to once again reiterate the sincere appreciation of Cameroon of the Secretary General, Mr. Antonio Guterres, and we encourage him to continue with the tenacity he has shown in spearheading courageous, relevant reforms that he has initiated since he took up office at the helm of this organization. We thank him for the guidance he has provided to our endeavors to tackle several global challenges. Cameroon wishes to extend to him its full support for his devotion and commitment to foster peace, security, economic progress and social development throughout the world. Mr. President, this session has been convened against an international backdrop in which several challenges call us to action. People throughout the world are almost suffocated by increasing worry as they contemplate ever worsening international relations, and we must urgently face these challenges. Indeed, we note with regret the continued existence of hotbeds of tension in several regions throughout the world, particularly in Africa, the Middle East, Asia, and Latin America. Terrorism, drug trafficking, transnational organized crime, including violent crime and gang warfare, the illegal trade of all types of weapons, are phenomena which appear to be spreading and which threat peace and stability of states and stop people across the world from thriving. Moreover, we should recall the existence of migratory flows. This phenomenon has become a subject of concern for all states, insofar as it particularly affects young people seeking a better life. If I may, in a different vein, I would note that poverty and inequality continue to reign. We could even go so far as to say that these phenomena are gaining ground. Today, humankind is facing a new scourge, namely social media. Social media have become veritable empires. They push instantly and at a global level wealth of sensationalist information which mixes truth and lies, and this information is manipulated by stakeholders as they seek to uphold their own partisan interests. And as these stakeholders seek to exercise their rights to freedom of opinion, expression, and information, ride roughshod over what is essential in terms of values and in terms of the dissemination of knowledge, namely the respect for human dignity and accountability. In addition to all of the above scourges, we can point to the fact that our planet's very survival is under threat, namely as a result of natural disasters, some of which are the result of human activity. We can talk here about climate change, floods, droughts, volcanoes, earthquakes, landslides, and fires causing devastation of multiple types. Mr. President, faced with these problems and scourges which know no boundaries, given growing globalization, Cameroon believes that the best solution to all of these problems involves increased and active solidarity, which is dynamic in nature and better structured. This solidarity should prevail at local, national, regional and international levels. Moreover, we believe that in this century we now possess major assets. We have technological means and a whole host of other instruments and mechanisms available to tackle, eradicate, or at least mitigate the devastating effects of the aforementioned problems and scourges. Indeed, in the digital era, exponential progress in the fields of science and technology have placed in human hands highly effective tools that can allow us to reach the farthest reaches of the universe, to explore and exploit the vast depths of our seas and oceans. Or, in other words, tools which allow us to investigate and master what is both vast and minuscule. In sum, we have solutions within our grasp to all of the aforementioned problems, tools which allow us to walk along the path of progress in a constructive and united fashion. Mr. President, in light of the above, the theme that you have chosen for our current debate is entirely relevant. That theme is galvanizing multilateral efforts, and here I'm quoting, for poverty eradication, quality education, climate action, and inclusion. And here I'm ending the quotation. Indeed, in selecting this as the theme for this current session, there is no doubt, Mr. President, that you have shown yourself able to raise the international community's awareness of two key truths. Namely, on the one hand, that we need to preserve the planet, which is our common home, and protect human beings that are indeed the very core of this planet, and the fact, incidentally, that humans could quite literally drown if nothing is done. That's one of the realities you've faced us with in choosing this theme. And on the other hand, you've raised our awareness of the fact it is vitally imperative to maintain interactive international relations, positive international relations, and that we need to strike a balance between these two realities. Mr. President, in light of the above analysis that I have just produced, allow me to broach the issue of multilateralism. Indeed, several delegations have dwelled on this issue, and it is one which is inextricably linked to the theme of our current debates. Multilateralism indeed stands as an appropriate solution to our problems, which must emphasize the respect of ideals, the goals, and the principles enshrined in the Charter of the United Nations. Multilateralism calls for active solidarity to be bolstered and calls for us all to demonstrate a desire to live together in full respect of global cultural diversity and in such a way as to promote and preserve the interests of one and all, and particularly those of the most vulnerable among us. Of course, upholding this form of multilateralism involves the establishment of a new international order, and one which it is equitable in nature and which is underpinned by a common desire to eradicate poverty and to achieve all SDGs in a safer and fairer world, one which will be safer and fairer for future generations too. Therefore, in order to achieve these goals, we must commit to the fundamental values of good governance, democratization at a national level, of course, but also all of this at an international level by rejecting processes whereby unilateral decisions are taken. In this vein, the Security Council reform is crucial, as is the reform of global economic institutions. Such reforms must be designed in such a way as to allow all countries, particularly those on the African continent, to take up their rightful place in the House of Nations. In light of the above, Cameroon commends the decision taken by the General Assembly to declare the 24th of April every year the International Day of Multilateralism and Diplomacy for Peace. We commend the decision to entitle next year's celebrations of the 75th anniversary of the United Nations as follows: "The future we want, the UN we need," reaffirming our collective commitment to multilateralism. Mr. President, Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, efforts to implement an innovative form of multilateralism and one which is tailored to our needs will be in vain if we do not place human beings and their well-being at the heart of our efforts, if we do not ensure human beings are spared the dangers which arise from peace and security being undermined, if we do not spare them socio-economic insecurity, be this caused by external factors or other factors, if we do not stop them from living in peace and dignity. Aware of the aforementioned challenges, my country has committed, as part of its development document entitled Vision 2035, and in line with the UN 2030 Agenda and the African Union 2063 Agenda for Sustainable Development, we have committed to establishing a proactive long-term development strategy. This strategy reflects the deepest aspirations of our citizens to live in a democratic country, a prosperous country, and one which is united in its diversity. The aspiration, too, to live in a country which offers equal opportunities for all to thrive. In light of the above commitments, President Paul Biya has committed the government to implement major structural projects to strengthen our infrastructure, namely our road infrastructure, our ports, energy infrastructure, sports facilities, and public healthcare infrastructure. He's committed to urban and rural development measures, to name but a few. Significant progress has been made, namely in the spheres of education and in terms of reducing inequality in the country. We have launched ambitious programs and projects to combat poverty and climate change. We provided a detailed overview of all of this progress in the voluntary national review that we submitted at the last high-level political forum of ECOSOC, which was held last July. In terms of education, and in spite of the fact more and more pupils are registering our schools, we have nevertheless, and the fact fewer teaching staff are at our disposal, but we have nevertheless reduced gender inequality in our schools and seen more and more both boys and girls graduating from our schools. Our efforts are focused on ensuring that young people in Cameroon, both boys and girls, are able to enjoy their right to education wherever they live in our country. As far as the reduction of inequalities is concerned, Cameroon has established a program of social safety nets and raised the minimum wage. We've also increased the wages of civil servants. Now we have a triennial plan in place specifically targeting young people, and it is funded to the tune of 102 billion CFA francs, and that is around 175 million US dollars. That's currently being implemented, and its ultimate goal is to ensure that young people can enter the labour market and integrate into society as a whole. Several programs have been put in place to ensure the advancement of women and the protection of the family. Now, in terms of resilience and adaptation to climate change, Cameroon was among the first countries to sign the Paris Agreement and has, in light of that commitment, established the goal of reducing its carbon emissions, or rather bringing them down to 32% of what they currently are by 2035. I'm delighted to share with you the fact that my country has adopted a national climate change adaptation plan. Cameroon believes that desertification is one of the major consequences of climate change. And so, in 2008, adopted the project Sahel Vert, or Green Sahel. This project involves restoring degraded land through, to give just one example, an operation which seeks to plant thousands of trees to stop land turning into desert. As part of this national action plan, the National Observatory Against Climate Change in Cameroon is now operational. Moreover, our country is part of the Great Forest Basin of the Congo in Central Africa and is home to the headquarters of the Central African Forestry Commission, the COMIFAC, and we are indeed chair of that commission. This institution plays a crucial role in managing forests in our sub-region, and indeed this is an endeavour to which all the countries in our region make a significant contribution. We would hope that the international community funds the various programs that it has pledged to fund from the Green Fund, and we hope that funds will be made available to those that need them so that the SDGs can be expeditiously achieved. The same thing stands for access to science, technology and innovation. Indeed, affluent countries must honour their pledges made in light of commitments entered into as part of the Paris Agreement. Mr. President, Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, as you are aware, Cameroon and the countries of the Lake Chad Basin, namely Chad, Nigeria and Niger, have for several years faced insecurity, and this caused by the terrorist group Boko Haram. Together with these countries, we are pooling our efforts within the multinational joint task force, whose goal is to combat this terrorist group, sparing no efforts in so doing. Thanks to the fact that we have pooled our efforts, we have achieved significant success in this struggle. Despite our efforts, Boko Haram continues to have considerable ability to wreak havoc in our region. It is for that reason that we wish to make use of this opportunity to solemnly reiterate our gratitude for all our bilateral, multilateral partners who tirelessly support us in our fight against terrorism. Terrorism has indeed now become a scourge which affects all regions of the world. We call upon them to remain unwavering in this support, particularly when it comes to helping us to manage the grave humanitarian crisis unleashed by terrorism. And of course, this humanitarian crisis comes about as the result of the need to manage refugees and displaced persons fleeing terrorism. We wish to solicit decisive support from our bilateral and multilateral partners to implement several development projects that are in the pipeline in the region in order to eradicate poverty. And in so doing, we hope to tackle the root causes of terrorism. Another area of major concern for my country has been the crisis in the northwest and south regions of Cameroon, which has been underway for the last 3 years. Indeed, separatist groups have sought in these two regions to breach the territorial integrity, unity and national cohesion of my country. They've sought to threaten the stability of national institutions and undermine the well-being of Cameroon's people by using armed violence, by issuing appeals to boycotts, by issuing appeals to general strikes, or rather a dead city policy, if you will. They have urged people to loot, to kidnap, to demand ransom, to kill, and there have been fires, blazes, whose aim has been to destroy infrastructure. There have been attacks perpetrated against all types of hospitals, schools, pupils, parents, and teachers, law enforcement officials, civilians, and we've seen ultimately, as a result of this work, the destruction of our economic and social fabric. This situation, Mr. President, has prompted large flows of displaced persons and produced several refugees that are currently residing in neighbouring brother countries. Despite this difficult situation, the government is bringing this internal and localized crisis under control, and so this crisis is in no way a threat to regional peace and security, and far less a threat to regional or international security. We are acting in the spirit of dialogue and cooperation. I can say to you today with great satisfaction that the process undertaken by the heads of state to manage the security situation in the northwest and southwest of Cameroon, a process which aims to ensure the definitive return to peace, is a process which has taken a number of strides forwards. We have now taken a particularly decisive step, and did so with the announcement on the 10th of September of the President of the convening of a great national dialogue.
Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, at this stage, I would like to share with you the views of the President of the Republic on this major national dialogue. I quote, "The national dialogue will allow Cameroonians to explore ways and means to meet the high aspiration of the people of the Northwest and Southwest regions, but also of all the components of our nation. It will not concern only the people of these two regions, but will focus on issues of national interest, such as national unity, such as national integration and living together. The major national dialogue will rally without exclusive all the daughters and sons of Cameroon around the values dear to them, namely peace, security, national harmony, and progress, and will focus on bilingualism, cultural diversity, and social cohesion, the reconstruction and development of conflict-affected areas, the return of refugees and displaced persons, the education and judicial system, the centralization and local development, and also will focus on the mobilization and reintegration of ex-combatants, the role of the diaspora in the country's development. The dialogue will bring together a wide range of personalities, parliamentarians, politicians, opinion leaders, intellectuals, economic operators, traditional rulers, religious authorities, members of the diaspora, representatives of defense and security forces, armed groups and victims, end of quote. Monsieur le Président.
Mr. President, Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, I commend the fact that the announcement made by the President of the Republic that this great national dialogue would be launched is one that was warmly welcomed by the national and international community, as well as by the United Nations, the African Union Commission, the European Union, the Commonwealth, La Francophonie, and others. Cameroon wishes to extend to these organizations its gratitude for the fact that they are ready and willing to support us in this Herculean task. I should here point out that the Prime Minister, head of government, is currently in consultations, intense consultations indeed, with all sectors of society, including civil society, to ensure the absolute success of this dialogue that is to be officially launched imminently, namely on the 30th of September 2019. Mr. President, ladies and gentlemen, as you are well aware, Cameroon has always been committed to promoting the rule of law, the respect of human rights, all human rights indeed, civil, political, economic, social and cultural rights. The government places particular emphasis on combating corruption. In order to spearhead that fight, it has created mechanisms designed to foster good governance, uphold the rule of law, but also to ensure development, prosperity, harmony, and national concord. As regards, in particular, ill-treatment, acts of violence, and other violations of rights seen as part of the crises prevailing in the northwest and southwest of my country, Cameroon is committed to ensuring there is no impunity. We are looking, in light of that commitment, to ensure that those perpetrating attacks that seek to undermine the state's stability are held accountable for their actions before competent courts in strict adherence to the law. Against this backdrop, Mr. President, allow me to once again quote the President of the Republic of Cameroon, who said, and I quote, "The respect, the rule of law, and the fight against impunity are the pillars of any endeavor consolidating the rule of law. This is a goal we all aspire to reach. Defying the rule of law and ensuring certain citizens enjoy impunity simply serves to make anarchy's bed." End quote. I wish from this illustrious rostrum to reiterate the appeal of the President of the Republic of Cameroon to countries that house extremists and those that promote hatred and violence, the appeal to them that they wake up and take action against these criminals in accordance with the law. I wish to thank our partners that have already committed to working with us to do just that. I must take this opportunity to warmly commend bilateral and multilateral partners for their support. They have always, in their actions, reaffirmed the unity and territorial integrity of Cameroon. Their support and assistance are particularly valuable to us. I wish to reassure you that the President of the Republic of Cameroon, His Excellency Paul Biya, and his government are sparing no effort to ensure that the crisis in the northwest and the southwest of the country is resolved, and sparing no effort to ensure peace returns to my country once and for all. Mr. President, Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, as I previously stated, we are now at a turning point in global history, in the history of the peoples of the nations of the world, a point which, if we take the right path, will allow us to live in a world of peace. The fundamental mission of our organization remains that of guaranteeing peace and international security, because there can be none of the development we all wish to see without peace and security. Cameroon will continue to support you in this noble mission. Thank you for your kind attention.
I thank the Minister of Foreign Affairs of Cameroon for his statement.